The FAA has generated UAS regulations establishing fundamental safety parameters while providing latitude for the evolution of more comprehensive training, testing, and certification. Now, the AUVSI members, working with the Remote Pilots Council, has established such a framework. Now, this framework is actually outlined in the Trusted Operator Program, or TOP, and their protocol manual. Now, these protocols have been developed to require a UAS pilot to obtain a specific level of knowledge, performance, and competency for a desired certification level. Now, flight training and endorsements actually follow the ASTM F3266 standards, and they use the NIST standard method for designing a testing apparatus specifically for small unmanned aircraft. Now, the top level 2 certification requires satisfactory passing a timed flight exam covering 5 basic maneuvers, as well as an oral and a written test. Written tests are given through our online test center. The questions are random and timed. The grades are immediately displayed, allowing the student to continue their progress to the next steps. Oral quizzes are given throughout the training session, both indoors in the classroom setting and outdoors while doing flight training. I will guarantee you that one of these days the FAA is going to show up in your door. You are a safety entity for public safety, okay? And that means that the public's going to see you and going to look at you and evaluate, and there's going to be somebody that has their nose bent on the thing. They're going to call the FAA. The FAA's so happens to be just across the river, so they come over and say, "Hey, how are you guys?" Okay. So when the FAA shows up, what are the typical things that they're going to ask you? So they're going to be on site and they're going to do an FAA inspection.
Flight logs.
Okay.
Yep. Checklists.
Maintenance records.
Maintenance records. Battery records.
Okay. What else?
See our licenses.
Okay, good. I like that.
Yep. See the registration on the drone.
Okay, got it. And your registration, which is your pilot certificate, right?
Yep.
Right.
So it's just like a driver's license. Pilot certificate. And the aircraft. Okay, what else do we say?
Any records of accidents? I think they'd probably ask
Okay.
that.
Yeah, because you keep those.
What they call it is any documentation about the operations. So what I would suggest you do is that to have the availability of the ops manual, okay,
Yep.
and the documentation around how, because he or she may, because maybe the incident was over an overheated battery, okay. So he's going to ask you for the maintenance record. So you need to know where that is. So it may not be in the field. Your operations manual, typically what I end up doing is I pack mine with me. While in the classroom, we describe the maneuvering sequence. Now this basic maneuvering sequence combines 5 individual test methods to evaluate various capabilities, including hold position and altitude, fly straight and level, climb and descend, move and rotate, and land accurately. We randomly position the launch pad so the student is not directly aligned with the mechanism. This tends to simulate actual in-field experiences. From the launch pad, the students will launch and establish a stable hover at position 1 over the center bucket stand. They will hold this position and altitude in position 1 and rotate 360 degrees in either direction to align both with A and B bucket. They will capture images of each bucket. Then they will fly forward straight and level to position 2 while maintaining a forward view into bucket B, but also aligned with bucket C, where they'll capture images of both buckets. At that point, they will fly backwards, straight and level, to position 1 again, while maintaining a forward view into bucket B, until also aligned with bucket A, and they will again capture images of each inscribed ring. Position 4, they will fly vertically, while maintaining a downward view into bucket A until also aligned with bucket C, and then capture an image of each bucket. They will fly forward, straight and level to position 5 over bucket D. At that time, they will rotate 180 degrees in either direction and to line up with bucket C, capturing image again with each inscribed ring. At this point, they will actually fly downward on a trajectory and land on the designated launch platform. Now they must rotate before landing to face the apparatus and must perform a one-touch landing, no bouncing, and as close as possible to the center of the platform, and then stop the propellers immediately. Now, no sliding and bouncing is allowed during this time. In addition to the flight standards, we also have a classroom that we review topics such as checklist, emergency procedures. We actually simulate, and then when you'll see a little later on that we actually create them in the field to evaluate the pilots. We also discuss crew resource management, regulations, of course, operations and policy manuals, primarily for those who are in inspection and surveying. We also discuss COAs and waivers, just some of the topics. The training actually takes a full day, 8 to 10 hours, and then the test, which is the following day, would take anywhere from 5 to 6 hours.
This is basically the ASTM 3622 standard, okay, built or designed by NIST, okay, the Department of Commerce. There's a whole variety of different kinds of flight tests depending upon the profession. For an example, firefighters have a different, they use the same mechanism, but maybe there's more to it, and they fly it differently because they have to really get into precision flying underneath things, okay, this type of stuff. So there's different mechanisms that we would test a firefighter. These are called the five basic positions that you need to perform in order to qualify for the top level positions, okay, certifications. So the only thing that we're going to be worried about is the containers and the buckets. So one of these, and I will put you in different positions this afternoon to fly so that you don't get used to one position, because in an actual test they may have you over there, they may have you over there, okay, but you won't be aligned with them, okay, because we never are in real world, right? So what's going to happen is you're gonna when we say go, you're going to be taken off here. The position 1 is with this bucket, right, and that bucket up there. So you're going to imagine, just make an imaginary line going across. So that's the position you want to get your bird into in this imaginary cross, and then look at your cameras to determine the exact positions. So what I would suggest to do, rather than to have your head in the cockpit, is have your head outside. You're getting into that routine of looking out versus looking in. And this is actually very good exercise for you, because in the real world, we're going to be doing the same thing. It's where are you? Where am I at? What's my position? What's my camera? Okay, what's the instrument say? Then you back out. So you'll be looking out as much as you are in. when you look in is that you know you're in about the right position to take the picture. And it's 1 picture per container per position. Okay, so then when you do the center position, the number 2 position, which is about halfway, right? So what we do, we know where that 45 is, but more importantly, we know where that is. So while we're doing this going straight out, or straight in, however you want to put it, to about halfway, about the halfway point, because that would make this 45 hit that halfway point, wouldn't it? So your head's outside the cockpit, getting yourself in position, then fine tune it, take your pictures, move on. When you move on, you're going backwards, right? Going backwards to number 1 position, making sure you're aligned, take the pictures, and then you're flying straight up. When you're flying straight up, you keep your aligned here until you're way up there, right? Okay, and then for the 45, imagine that 45, if you look at that 45 down there in that C bucket, just to do an imaginary line up above this one, and that's where you want to ascend to. So it's an imaginary. Keep your head out, move your bird up to that imaginary line, then look down, take your pictures, move on to position 5, which is up above that very tall one, okay, 180, down to this 45, land. Cool? Okay. Also, what I want to do too is I want the PIC to verbally go through the pre-flight checklist, the checklist ready to take off, okay? The VO, and we're going to rotate VOs, okay? So whoever wants to be the first VO, I'd say we stand out there, because you're still going to look for birds around here. We do have hawks, right? And lots of wildlife, whatever. So even though that we're in G-class airspace, there's nobody around, there's still wildlife. So keep lookout for that. So what you'll do as a PIC, you're going to call out your checklist, okay? And then the VO, what the VO can do, he can read the checklist off to you, and you can say check. It's however you guys want to work, long as the checklist is done. The other thing I want to do is, before you take off, I want the PIC to verbally say what they're going to do into emergency. So if you have an emergency upon takeoff, you'll immediately land. Okay? If I'm in flight and there's an emergency, I'm either going to, if I cannot bring it back to land, I'll call emergency. If I can't bring it back to land, I'm landing immediately. So you need to tell people what to expect from you in certain situations. This is the same in the field. They want to hear this from you. So be verbal. Do your checklist and then say, in emergency, this is what I'm going to do. VO says check, right? He acknowledges what you said. So you got to get everybody to acknowledge what you said. Because sometimes you're going to be out and it's going to be noisy and they can't hear you.
During the flight training, each pilot will be assessed at the end of each sequence. Now this includes image assessment, crew management, flight competency, of course, whether they're using the checklist efficiently and effectively, and of course, emergency procedures. Now at the end of the practice, each pilot will have 10 minutes to fly 5 sequences. This will be a total of 50 images that will be graded to the NIST standard. Now we will accelerate this video until completed. We log the time over the 5 sequences, which gives us the ability to determine the average time the pilot takes for each sequence. And of course, the goal is 2 minutes or less for a sequence. After which, the pilot submits their SD card, where we evaluate each image for the grading. Each image can be carefully evaluated to establish their final grade. Training and exams are conducted with the intensity and the seriousness of an FAA commercial exam. It is our goal to promote and to provide quality commercial remote pilots for the public.